A security camera captures everything. 11:47 p.m. A pregnant woman sits alone in a hospital waiting room. Then she walks in. The mistress, designer coat, perfect smile. 47 seconds of conversation we can't quite hear. Then it happens. The push, the fall, the blood. But here's what the camera didn't show: the billionaire father watching from across the city, about to unleash a war that would destroy everyone involved. This is the story of what happens when you push the wrong woman. Literally, fun. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell me, would you fight back or would you walk away? Let's find out what Harper Brennan chose. The security footage timestamp reads 11:47 p.m. The maternity ward waiting room sits empty except for one woman. Harper Brennan, 8 months pregnant, scrolls through her phone with one hand while the other rests protectively on her swollen belly. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across her tired face. Real, you told me last week you regretted everything, that you felt trapped, that if it weren't for the baby, you would come back to me. Get out, Ethan said to Vivian. His voice was sharp now. Excuse me, Vivian's pleasant facade cracked. Leave, now. This is between me and my wife. Vivian stood slowly. She collected her shoes but did not put them on. As she passed Harper in the doorway, she leaned close. He doesn't love you, she whispered. He loves what you represented. Stability, respectability, a clean slate for the IPA. I'm the one who knows him. I'm the one who built his dream. Harper felt something tighten in her chest. Pain radiated across her abdomen. She gasped. Ethan was immediately at her side. What's wrong? The baby. Harper bent forward. Something's wrong. We need to get you to a hospital. Vivian watched from the hallway, her expression unreadable. Harper straightened slightly. Don't touch me. I'll drive myself. So you can't drive like this? Then call me a car. Just don't touch me. Ethan pulled out his phone. His hands shook as he ordered a rideshare. Harper leaned against the wall, breathing through the contractions. False labor, probably. Stress-induced. But the pain was real. The fear was real. The car arrived within minutes. Harper walked to the elevator alone. Behind her, she heard Ethan and Vivian arguing in sharp whispers. The lobby security guard asked if she was okay. Harper nodded and kept walking. The driver tried to make conversation during the ride to Lenox Hill Hospital. Harper did not respond. She counted her breaths. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. The emergency room was quiet this late. A nurse took her vitals immediately. Blood pressure elevated. Heart rate fast. Baby's heart rate showing stress patterns. We need to monitor you, the nurse said. Any recent trauma or emotional distress? Harper almost laughed. You could say that. They moved her to a monitoring room. Straps around her belly tracked the baby's heartbeat. The sound filled the small space. Steady but rapid. Too rapid. A doctor appeared. Claire Hoffman. According to her badge. Mrs. Cole, I'm seeing stress indicators for both you and the baby. We need you to stay calm. Can you do that? I don't know, Harper said honestly. What happened tonight? Harper told her everything, the messages, the office, the other woman, the engagement, the laissez. Dr. Hoffman listened without judgment. Sometimes our bodies respond to emotional trauma as intensely as physical trauma. Your baby is feeling everything you're feeling right now. We need to stabilize you both. They admitted Harper for overnight observation. She was moved to the maternity ward waiting area while they prepared a room. The clock on the wall read 11:15 p.m. Harper sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair and stared at her phone. Ethan had called 6 times, sent 11 messages. She had read none of them. Her father's contact information stared back at her from her favorites list. She had never removed it. 2 years of silence, and his name was still marked with a heart emoji. Her thumb hovered over the call button, but pride stopped her. Or maybe it was shame. She had sworn she did not need him, that she could build a life independent of his influence and money and power, that she could choose better than he had. She had been so wrong. Harper closed her phone and leaned back. The baby had calmed. The contractions had stopped. Maybe they would both be okay. The automatic doors slid open. Vivian Sterling walked into the waiting room. Harper's blood ran cold. How did you know I was here? Vivian's designer coat looked out of place in the sterile hospital setting. Ethan told me. He's parking the car. He wanted me to check on you first. That makes no sense. Doesn't it? Vivian moved closer. We've been doing everything together for 5 years. Why would tonight be different? Harper stood slowly. You need to leave. I need to make something very clear to you. Vivian's voice dropped lower. You think you won because you got pregnant. You think you trapped him into marriage, and now you get the life, the house, the security. I don't want to hear this, but you're going to hear it, because you need to understand what you've done. Ethan and I were building something real, a company that's about to be worth hundreds of millions. We worked 80-hour weeks. We sacrificed everything, and then you came along. Harper's hand moved protectively to her belly. I didn't know about you. That's the thing, isn't it? You didn't ask. You didn't question. You just saw a handsome, successful man and thought you deserved him. You didn't build anything. You didn't earn anything. You just existed at the right time and got pregnant. The words cut deep because part of Harper wondered if they were true. She had fallen fast. She had not asked hard questions. She had wanted the fairy tale. He married me, Harper said quietly. He chose me. Vivian laughed. The sound echoed in the empty waiting room. He chose obligation. He chose what looked good for the company image. But love, partnership, that's mine. That's always been mine. Then why are you here if you're so confident? Because I want you to know exactly who you're dealing with. I'm not some mistress hiding in the shadows. I'm the woman who built his dream. I'm the one who matters. And when that baby is born, when the PR value wears off, he'll come back to me because I'm the only one who truly knows him. Harper felt her chest tighten again. Pain radiated across her abdomen. She tried to breathe through it. Are you having contractions? Vivian asked. The concern in her voice sounded almost genuine. It's stress from this conversation. You need to go. I'll go when Ethan gets here. No. Now, I'm asking you to leave me alone. Vivian tilted her head. Or what you'll call your daddy. Have him make me disappear with his dirty money and threats. Is that the plan? I haven't spoken to my father in 2 years. Really, that's interesting. Because he called Ethan last week, offered him $50 million to divorce you quietly, said he knew Ethan was having an affair, said he could make evidence appear that would destroy him. Harper's world spun. What? Your father's been watching, following Ethan, having us investigated. Did you really think Jack Brennan would let his daughter marry someone without keeping tabs? You're lying. Am I call him and ask? Harper pulled out her phone with shaking hands. She opened her call history. No incoming calls from Jack. She checked her blocked numbers. There he was. 17 blocked calls in the last month. She had set his number to auto-block after their fight. She never knew he had been trying to reach her. He knew, Harper whispered. He knew and tried to warn me. He tried to buy Ethan off, which, frankly, insulted both of us. Did he really think 50 million was enough? Our company's IPO will be worth 10 times that. Something shifted in Harper's chest. Not pain, something else. Realization, rage. You're right about one thing, Harper said. I didn't ask questions. I didn't dig deep. I wanted to believe in something good, but you knew exactly what you were doing. You knew he was married. You pursued him anyway. You're texting him at midnight. You're in his office drinking wine at 2 a.m. You're not a victim. You're calculating. Vivian's smile returned. Finally, there's the Brennan Steel. I was wondering when it would show up. Get out of this hospital. Make me. I'll call security. Go ahead. Tell them Jack Brennan's daughter is having a tantrum. See how that plays in the media. Billionaire heiress attacks working woman. That's a headline I'd love to see. Harper moved toward the nurse's station. Vivian stepped into her path. You're not going anywhere, Vivian said. Her voice had lost all pretense of civility. You're going to sit back down and wait for Ethan, and then you're going to listen to what we've decided about the future, about custody arrangements, about how this is going to work. Custody, I'm still pregnant. Not for long if you keep this up. You need to calm down, accept reality. You're having Ethan's baby. Fine, you'll be a mother, but you won't be his wife for much longer. He's already talking to divorce lawyers. The words hung in the air between them. Harper tried to step around Vivian. Vivian's hand shot out, grabbing Harper's arm. "Let go of me," Harper said. "Not until you listen." "I said let go." Harper pulled her arm back. Vivian's grip tightened. They struggled for a moment, neither woman willing to back down. Then Vivian's other hand moved. A push. Hard. Deliberate. Against Harper's shoulder. Harper stumbled backward. Her hip caught the metal chair. She twisted, trying to catch herself. Her hands grasped at air. She fell. The world tilted and slowed. She saw the chair's armrest rushing toward her face, felt the impact against her temple, tasted blood. Then she hit the ground. Her belly absorbed some of the impact. Pain exploded through her abdomen. She heard screaming, a nurse's voice, running footsteps, alarms. Vivian stood frozen, her hand still extended where she had pushed. "I didn't mean to," Vivian whispered, but her eyes said something else. "They said yes, I did." Harper's vision blurred. She felt warmth spreading beneath her. Blood or fluid. She could not tell. Her last conscious thought was for her baby. Please, please let him be okay. Then darkness. Harper woke to the sound of machines. Beeping. Humming. The antiseptic smell of a hospital room. The automatic doors slide open. A woman in a designer coat enters. Vivian Sterling. Her heels click against the linoleum floor with deliberate precision. She spots Harper, and her expression shifts from neutral to something colder. Harper looks up. Her body tenses immediately. "You shouldn't be here," Harper says, her voice barely above a whisper. Vivian steps closer. "He's not coming. You know, he's with me, planning our real future. Get out, please." Harper's hand moves to her belly, protective. "You're just a womb. Harper, I'm his partner. I built that company with him while you were playing house." Harper stands slowly, unsteady. "I'm asking you one more time. Leave." Vivian's face twists. "You ruined everything." What happens next takes less than 3 seconds. Vivian's hand shoots out. The push is deliberate, forceful. Harper stumbles backward. Her hip catches the metal chair. She crashes down hard. Her head strikes the armrest. Her body felt disconnected, like it belonged to someone else. She tried to move. Pain shot through her abdomen. A hand caught hers. "Don't try to get up yet." The voice was familiar, deep, gruff. Harper's eyes focused. Jack Brennan sat beside her hospital bed. He looked older than she remembered. More gray in his dark hair. New lines around his eyes. "Dad," her voice came out as a croak. "I'm here, Harper. The baby." Panic seized her. "Where's my baby?" "He's alive, still inside you. But it's touch and go. They've got you on a medication to stop premature labor. You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days, Harper tried to process that. "What happened?" "You fell, hit your head. You have a concussion. Your blood pressure spiked dangerously high. They're monitoring you around the clock." Harper's hand moved to her belly. She felt the firm roundness. Movement. Her baby was still there. "How did you know to come?" Jack's jaw tightened. "The hospital called me. I'm still listed as your emergency contact. You never changed it." Tears burned Harper's eyes. "I thought I deleted you from everything." "You can't delete blood, sweetheart." They sat in silence for a moment. The machines continued their rhythmic beeping. "I was wrong," Harper whispered. "About Ethan. About everything. You tried to warn me. I was wrong too. I shouldn't have tried to buy him off. I should have just talked to you. Trusted you to see the truth." "What truth?" Jack pulled out a folder. "This is going to be hard to hear." Inside were photographs, financial records, private investigator reports. Jack had been tracking Ethan for over a year. "He's done this twice before," Jack said. "Found young women, got them pregnant, married them for appearance, then went back to Vivian Sterling every time. She's not just his COO, she's his constant." Harper stared at the documents. 2 other women, 2 other children. Both women paid off with non-disclosure agreements. Both living quietly in other states with Ethan's children and his money buying their silence. "Why didn't you show me this before? Would you have believed me, or would you have thought I was trying to control your life again?" Harper closed her eyes. He was right. She would not have believed him. There's security footage from the night you fell, Jack continued. The hospital has it. The police have been here. They want to talk to you. Oh, about what? About what Vivian Sterling did to you. Harper's memory came flooding back. The argument, the struggle, the push. It was deliberate, Harper said. She meant to hurt me. I know, but there's a problem. Vivian filed a statement first. She claims you attacked her, that you lunged at her in a jealous rage, that she was defending herself. That's not what happened. I know that. You know that. The security camera knows that, but her lawyers got to the police first. They're spinning this as a domestic dispute between two women fighting over a man. They're painting you as the aggressor, the unstable billionaire's daughter with too much privilege and not enough sense. Harper felt rage building in her chest. Can they do that? They're doing it. It's all over the news. Social media is tearing you apart. They found old photos of you from college. Parties, spring break, things every college kid does. But they're using them to paint you as reckless, entitled, prone to dramatic behavior. None of that is true. Truth doesn't matter when perception is already set, and Vivian's PR firm is very good at perception. A knock on the door interrupted them. Dr. Hoffman entered, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Cole, you're awake. Good. How are you feeling? Angry, Harper said honestly. Dr. Hoffman smiled slightly. That's actually a healthy response. Your vitals are improving, but we need to keep you on strict bed rest. Any more stress could trigger premature labor. Your baby is at 32 weeks. Every day he stays inside is critical for his development. Can I see the security footage? Dr. Hoffman glanced at Jack. I'm not sure that's advisable right now. I need to see it. I need to know what the camera shows. Jack pulled out his phone. I have a copy. Marcus got it from hospital security before Vivian's lawyers could try to suppress it. He played the video. Harper watched herself from the camera's perspective. Watched Vivian approach. Watched their confrontation. Watched the moment Vivian's hand extended and pushed her shoulder. It was clear. Unmistakable. Deliberate. This proves she attacked me, Harper said. It would, Jack replied. Except her lawyers are arguing the camera angle doesn't show what happened immediately before. They're claiming you made a threatening move toward her that the camera didn't catch. They're saying she reacted in self-defense. That you've accused him of things without proof. That you've been paranoid and jealous. The betrayal cut deeper than the physical injuries. He's really doing this. He's protecting his company. The IPO is scheduled for next month. Any scandal could tank it. Vivian has convinced him that painting you as unstable protects them both. So what do? Jack leaned forward. We make them regret underestimating what happens when you hurt a Brennan. Detective Sam Porter had seen a lot in his 20 years with the NYPD, but this case felt different. The players were all powerful. The stakes were high, and the truth seemed buried under layers of expensive legal strategy. He sat across from Harper in her hospital room 3 days after she woke up. Notebook open, recorder running with her permission. Walk me through that night, he said. Everything you remember. Harper told him, every detail. The messages she found, the office confrontation, the hospital, Vivian's arrival, the threats, the push. Detective Porter took notes. And you're certain she pushed you deliberately? I'm certain. Ms. Sterling's statement says you grabbed her first, that you were advancing on her aggressively. That's a lie. Can anyone corroborate your version, besides your father? Dr. Hoffman, she was there. She saw everything. Detective Porter's expression shifted. I spoke with Dr. Hoffman yesterday. She's recanted her willingness to testify. Harper felt her stomach drop. What? Why, Tal? She didn't say, just that she was mistaken about what she saw, that the distance and angle made it unclear. Someone got to her, Jack said from his position by the window. How much you want to bet Vivian's people found leverage? Detective Porter closed his notebook. I can't speak to speculation. What I can say is that without a cooperating witness, and with conflicting statements, the DA is unlikely to press charges. The security footage is ambiguous enough that it comes down to he said, she said, or in this case, she said. So Vivian just gets away with it. Harper's voice cracked. I'm sorry, Mrs. Cole, there's not enough evidence to move forward criminally. You could pursue a civil case, but that's outside my jurisdiction. After Detective Porter left, Harper sat in stunned silence. Jack paced the room like a caged animal. This isn't over, he finally said. Dad, the police just said there's nothing they can do. The police work within certain boundaries. What does that mean? Jack stopped pacing. He looked at his daughter with an expression she recognized from childhood. It was the look he got when someone tried to take something that belonged to him. Cold, calculating, dangerous. It means I have resources the police don't have. Marcus used to be FBI. He knows how to dig, how to find things people want to stay hidden. If Vivian Sterling and Ethan Cole think they can hurt my daughter and walk away, they're about to learn a very expensive lesson. I don't want you to do anything illegal. I won't. But legal and ethical are different things. I'm going to destroy them within the bounds of the law. It'll just feel illegal to them. Over the next 2 weeks, Harper remained hospitalized, bed rest, monitoring. Her baby stabilized but remained at risk. Every day she stayed pregnant was a small victory. Jack visited daily. He brought updates but spared her the details. She did not ask. Some part of her did not want to know what her father was doing in her name. Ethan came once. He stood in the doorway, not quite entering. He looked tired, guilty, but not guilty enough. "How are you?" he asked. "How do you think?" Harper replied. "I never wanted this to happen. But it did, and you chose to lie about it, to protect her instead of me. It's not that simple." Blood begins pooling beneath her. The security camera captures everything, every angle, every moment, every detail that will change all of their lives forever. A nurse screams. Footsteps thunder down the hallway. Vivian stands frozen, her hand still extended, realization dawning on her face. The screen cuts to black. Text appears 72 hours earlier. The company, the IPO. "I don't care about your company. I care about our child. The child you helped create. The child that almost died because your mistress pushed me. She says it was an accident, and you believe her." Ethan did not answer. His silence was answer enough. "Get out," Harper said quietly. "Harper, get out, file for divorce. Do whatever you need to do. But get out of this room and don't come back." Ethan left. Harper cried for an hour afterward. Not for him, for the future she had imagined. For the family that would never exist. For her son who would grow up with parents who could not stand to be in the same room. That night, again, Marcus Reed visited. He was a tall man with gray temples and eyes that had seen too much. He carried a tablet and a manila folder. "Your father asked me to brief you," Marcus said. "Are you up for it? I need to know what's happening." Marcus opened the tablet. "Dr. Hoffman was threatened. We have proof. Someone photographed her teenage son at school. Sent the photos to her with a message. Testify and see what happens to him. She went to the police, but they couldn't trace the sender, so she recanted to protect her kid. That's witness tampering." "It is. But without knowing who sent it, we can't prove it was connected to Vivian. The message came from a burner phone." "So another dead end?" "Not quite. We kept digging. Dr. Hoffman wasn't the only witness. There's a security guard who saw Vivian enter the hospital that night. He remembered her because she asked specific questions about which floor you were on, about whether there were cameras in the waiting areas. Like she was planning something. Is he willing to talk?" "He gave us a statement, but he's scared. He's an immigrant working security for minimum wage. He doesn't want to get involved with powerful people and lawyers." "I understand." Marcus pulled out the folder. "There's more. Financial records. Ethan's company received emergency funding 3 days after your attack. $5 million from an offshore account traced back to Vivian's family. The timing is suspicious. We think it was payment. Payment for what? For Ethan supporting her story. For standing by her. 5 million buys a lot of loyalty." Harper felt sick. "My husband sold me out for money. Your soon-to-be ex-husband. Jack's lawyers are already preparing the divorce paperwork. Ethan won't get a dime. No prenup means it goes to litigation. But Jack's going to bury him in legal fees until he gives up." "What about Vivian?" Marcus's expression darkened. "That's where it gets complicated. She's smart. Everything she does is just barely legal. The threatening messages, untraceable. The media campaign against you, protected speech. The push without witnesses. It's your word against hers. So she wins. She thinks she does. But your father's not done yet. Harper looked out of the hospital window at the New York skyline. Somewhere out there, Vivian Sterling was celebrating. Probably with Ethan. Probably planning their future now that the inconvenient wife was out of the picture. I want her to pay, Harper said quietly. Not just for what she did to me, for what she almost did to my son. She will, Marcus promised. Jack Brennan doesn't lose. He just takes his time winning. The contractions started at 4 in the morning. Harper woke to pain that felt like her body was being torn apart. She pressed the call button. Nurses rushed in. Alarm sounded. We're losing the baby's heartbeat, one nurse called out. Dr. Hoffman appeared. All business. Prep for emergency cesarean, now. It's too early, Harper gasped. He's only 32 weeks. If we don't deliver now, you could both die. I need you to trust me. Harper had no choice. They wheeled her to the operating room at a run. Bright lights, cold air, fear like she had never known. Jack appeared in scrubs, mask covering his face. I'm here, you're not alone. The anesthesiologist worked quickly. Epidural placed, sensation fading from Harper's waist down. She could still feel pressure, but not pain. You'll feel some tugging, Dr. Hoffman said. Stay calm, breathe. Harper gripped Jack's hand. She had never been religious, but she prayed. Every deity she could think of, every bargain she could make. Please let my baby live. He's out, Dr. Hoffman announced. Silence. Terrible, awful silence. Then a weak cry, the most beautiful sound Harper had ever heard. 2 pounds, 4 ounces, a nurse called out. Breathing on his own but needs support. They whisked the baby away to the NICU team waiting nearby. Harper caught only a glimpse, impossibly small, red and wrinkled. Perfect. Is he okay? Harper asked. He's alive, Dr. Hoffman said. That's what matters right now. The next 72 hours are critical. But he's a fighter. They sewed Harper up, moved her to recovery. Jack stayed by her side the entire time. You need to name him, Jack said softly. Harper had planned to discuss names with Ethan. They had lists, arguments about family names versus modern names. None of that mattered now. Cole, Harper said. His name is Cole, after Ethan's family. No, after survival. It means victory. He's already won just by being here. Jack nodded. Cole Brennan, I like it. Cole Brennan Hartman, Harper corrected. She would use her family name now. Her son would carry her father's name, not his father's. In the NICU, Cole fought for every breath. Tubes and wires covered his tiny body. A ventilator helped his underdeveloped lungs. IV lines fed him nutrients he was too weak to take by mouth. The medical bills began immediately. $50,000 per day for NICU care. Harper's insurance company denied coverage, citing a pre-existing condition clause related to her high-risk pregnancy due to emotional instability. Vivian's media campaign had even poisoned her insurance. Harper sat by Cole's incubator, unable to hold him, unable to comfort him. She could only watch through the plastic barrier as he struggled to live. I'm sorry, she whispered. This is all my fault. If I had been stronger, if I hadn't let her get to me, if I had protected you better. This isn't your fault, Jack said from behind her. This is their fault, and they're going to pay for every day our boy spends in this box. How the police dropped it. Ethan's filing for divorce. Vivian's walking around free. She's winning. Jack knelt beside Harper's wheelchair. Look at me. She met his eyes. Do you trust me? He asked. I don't know, should I? Yes, because I'm about to do things that will make you question my methods. But I need you to trust that I'm doing them for the right reasons. For you, for Cole, for justice. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes. Have you ever reached a point where you had to choose between taking the high road and getting justice? Where the system failed you so completely that the only option left was to fight fire with fire? Harper was staring at that choice, and her father was offering her a way out. But the cost was her soul. I can't ask you to do anything illegal, Harper said. You're not asking. I'm offering. And it won't be illegal. It'll just be ruthless. Harper looked at her son, at the monitors tracking his weak heartbeat, at the machines keeping him alive. Do it, she whispered. Make them pay. Jack smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had just been given permission to wage war. Marcus, Jack said into his phone, it's time. Activate everything. Over the next 72 hours, Jack Brennan unleashed hell. First, the financial attack. Jack called in favors from every bank, every lender, every investor he knew. Within 24 hours, Ethan's company lost its credit line. The IPO was postponed indefinitely. Investors pulled out. The company that was worth hundreds of millions on paper was suddenly worth nothing. Second, the legal attack. Jack hired the 3 best law firms in New York. They filed simultaneous lawsuits. Divorce proceedings that would drag Ethan through years of litigation, civil assault charges against Vivian, medical malpractice suits against the insurance company, every angle covered, every vulnerability exploited. Third, the media attack. Jack owned significant shares in 2 major media companies. Stories began appearing, investigative pieces about Ethan's pattern of behavior, interviews with his previous wives, their NDAs voided by the legal argument that they were signed under duress, photos of Vivian at luxury resorts while Harper lay in a hospital bed. The narrative shifted. Within a week, public opinion turned. Hashtags changed from criticizing Harper to supporting her. Social media dissected every aspect of Vivian and Ethan's relationship. Their crimes, their lies, their cruelty. Harper watched it happen from her hospital room. Part of her felt vindicated. Part of her felt dirty. This was her father's world. The world she had spent her adult life trying to escape. And now she was weaponizing it. But when she looked at Cole, still fighting in his plastic box, still struggling for every breath, the guilt faded. They had tried to destroy her. They had almost killed her son. They deserved everything coming to them. On day 8, Vivian cracked. She posted a long statement on social media, rambling, defensive, blaming everyone but herself. The statement included one fatal line: I was defending myself against a woman who has used her father's money to control and manipulate everyone around her. Harper Brennan had spent her entire life running from her father's shadow. Jack Brennan built his real estate empire through calculated ruthlessness and legal warfare. He destroyed competitors without hesitation. He valued power over people. Harper swore she would never become him. That was before she married Ethan Cole. Their Brooklyn brownstone sat in the kind of neighborhood where young professionals pretended they had made it. Harper packed her hospital bag methodically. Baby clothes in pale yellow, diapers, blankets, the essentials for bringing new life into the world. Her phone buzzed. Ethan's name lit up the screen. Still at the investor dinner. His text read, "Don't wait up." Harper stared at the message. It was 11:30 p.m. She opened his location sharing. He was not at a restaurant. He was at his office building in Manhattan. She scrolled through their recent conversations. Something felt wrong. It had felt wrong for weeks. The late nights. Her entire life has been bought and paid for, including the media campaign to destroy me. Marcus brought the statement to Harper. She just admitted it. Admitted what? That she's aware of your father's campaign, which means she's been tracking it, which means she knows she's losing. And people who know they're losing make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? The kind that give us evidence. Keep watching. 2 days later, Vivian gave an interview to a sympathetic journalist. She cried on camera. She talked about being bullied by the Brennan family. She described in detail the night at the hospital. And then she said it. Harper came at me. She was out of control. I pushed her back to protect myself. I had to defend myself against her jealous rage. Marcus replayed the video for Harper. She just changed her story. In her original police statement, she said Harper slipped after they were arguing, but not touching. Now she's admitting she pushed her. That's assault. That's proof. Will the police reopen the case? Not just the police, the FBI. We documented those threats against Dr. Hoffman. We can now prove witness tampering, federal crime. Vivian Sterling is about to have a very bad day. That night, Harper allowed herself a moment of hope. Maybe justice was possible. Maybe the system would work after all. She was wrong. The trial began 6 weeks later. Cole was out of the NICU but still required oxygen support at home. Harper brought him to court, his tiny face visible above the breathing tube. The prosecution laid out their case. Security footage, audio analysis proving Vivian said, "This is for ruining us," before pushing Harper. Financial records showing payments to Ethan, evidence of the threatening messages to Dr. Hoffman. The defense argued self-defense, emotional distress. They painted Vivian as a victim of a powerful family's vendetta. They showed photos of Harper at society events, at galas, living in privilege. They implied she was playing the victim for sympathy. Ethan testified for the defense. He described Harper as unstable during the pregnancy, jealous, prone to dramatic accusations. He claimed he feared for his safety around her. Harper sat in the courtroom and watched her husband, the father of her child, destroy her credibility with calm, measured lies. He never looked at her, never looked at Cole. He simply recited the script Vivian's lawyers had prepared. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Harper sat between her father and Marcus as they waited. Cole slept in her arms, the quiet hiss of his oxygen machine, the only sound. "No matter what happens," Jack said, "we keep fighting." The jury filed back in. The four women stood. Judge Raymond Walsh asked for the verdict. "In the matter of the people versus Vivian Sterling, on the charge of assault in the 3rd degree, we find the defendant not guilty." The courtroom erupted. Harper felt her world collapse. Not guilty, after everything, after all the evidence, after the confession. Not guilty. The jury forewoman did an interview outside the courthouse. A reporter asked why they voted to acquit. "We felt this was a situation of two privileged women fighting over a man," she said. "Ms. Sterling may have pushed Ms. Hartman, but Miss Hartman's family used their power to destroy Ms. Sterling's life. We couldn't reward that kind of behavior with a conviction." Harper watched the interview on her phone in the back of Jack's car. She felt numb. Justice had failed. The system had failed. Everything had failed. "It's not over," Jack said. "Yes, it is. She won." "No." The jury said she's not criminally responsible, but civil court has a lower burden of proof. "We'll sue her. We'll take everything she has." Harper shook her head. "I don't want her money. I want her to pay." "She will. Just not the way we planned." That night, Harper carried Cole into their new apartment. Jack had bought it for them. Smaller than the brownstone she shared with Ethan, but safe, protected. Home. She fed Cole through his feeding tube, changed his oxygen tank, sang him a lullaby her mother had sung to her. When he finally slept, Harper allowed herself to cry. For the first time since the attack, she cried without holding back. For her son, who would never have a normal childhood. For her marriage that had been built on lies. For her innocence about how the world really worked. The next morning, Judge Walsh issued his ruling on the civil restraining order Vivian had filed. It was granted. Harper could not go within 500 feet of Vivian or Ethan. The order would remain in effect for 5 years. That afternoon, Harper took Cole for a walk in his specialized stroller, the oxygen tank mounted underneath, the pulse monitor clipped to his tiny finger. She walked through Central Park, trying to find peace. A crowd gathered ahead, news vans, cameras. Harper tried to turn around, but security guards blocked the path. "What's happening?" she asked. "Protest," the guard said. "Some group supporting that Sterling woman. You should go a different way." But it was too late. Someone recognized Harper. Someone pointed. Someone shouted, "There she is, the one who lied." The crowd turned. Angry faces, raised fists. Someone threw something. It hit the stroller. Cole woke up screaming. Harper ran. Security tried to help, but the crowd was too thick. People shouted insults, accusations, threats. A news camera caught it all. Harper stumbling, was trying to shield her baby. Cole's terrified cries. The oxygen tube getting tangled. The pulse monitor beeping an alarm. They made it to Jack's car. Marcus had been following at a distance for exactly this reason. He drove them to the hospital. Cole's oxygen levels had dropped dangerously low during the chaos. The trauma triggered a respiratory crisis. They admitted him immediately. Dr. Hoffman worked on him for 3 hours. When she finally emerged, her face was grim. "He's stable, but the stress caused permanent damage to his already weak lungs. He'll need oxygen support for the rest of his life, not just when sleeping. All the time. Harper felt something break inside her. Because of what happened today. Because of accumulated trauma. The premature birth, the stress. Today's incident. His body couldn't handle it. I'm sorry. Harper sat in the waiting room and stared at nothing. Her son would never breathe freely. He would never run and play without a machine helping him. He would never have a normal life. All because Vivian Sterling pushed her. All because Ethan Cole lied. All because the system failed to protect them. Jack found her there an hour later. He sat beside her without speaking. Finally, Peyton, Harper said, I want them destroyed. Harper, no, not sued, not embarrassed. Destroyed. You said you could do it, so do it. I don't care about the high road anymore. I don't care about being better than them. I want them to feel what I'm feeling right now. Jack was quiet for a long moment. You're sure because once we go down this road, we don't come back. I'm sure. Then we do this my way. Completely. No limits. No mercy. Harper looked at her father, at the man she had spent years trying to prove she did not need, at the man who was offering to become a monster on her behalf. Do whatever you have to do, she said. Jack made a phone call. Marcus, change of plans. We're not playing nice anymore. 3 months passed. On the surface, life continued. Vivian and Ethan married in a small ceremony in the Hamptons. Their company found new investors and moved forward with a delayed IPO. The media moved on to new scandals. But beneath the surface, Jack Brennan was patient. And patient predators are the most dangerous. Marcus worked in shadows. He planted information, leaked documents, made connections between people who should never have been connected. He built a web so complex that by the time anyone realized they were trapped, escape was impossible. The first thread to pull was Vivian's family money. Marcus discovered it came from offshore accounts tied to shell corporations. Legal, but suspicious. He leaked the information to the IRS. The agency opened an investigation. The second thread was Ethan's new investors. They were all connected to Vivian's family. Marcus proved that the investments were structured to hide money laundering. The FBI opened a financial crimes investigation. The third thread was the threatening message sent to Dr. Hoffman. Marcus tracked the burner phone to a location that Vivian had visited the day the message was sent. Not proof, but enough for prosecutors to reopen the witness tampering case. Each thread alone was not enough, but together they formed a pattern of corruption, intimidation, and fraud. The kind of pattern that federal prosecutors loved. 1 year after Cole's birth, federal agents arrested Vivian Sterling at her office. The charges: witness tampering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and obstruction of justice. Ethan tried to distance himself. He claimed ignorance. He said Vivian had acted alone. He offered to testify against her in exchange for immunity. The prosecutors laughed at him. They had recordings. Marcus had worn a wire during a meeting where Ethan discussed the threats against Dr. Hoffman. Ethan had said, "Whatever it takes to protect the company." Those 4 words destroyed his defense. Both were held without bail as flight risks. Both faced decades in prison if convicted. Harper watched the news coverage with Cole in her arms. He was 1 year old now, still tiny, still dependent on oxygen, but alive, fighting, surviving. Is it enough? Jack asked. Harper thought about the question. The dismissive responses, the way he touched his phone like it held secrets. Harper opened his cloud backup on their shared iPad. She knew his password. They had promised complete transparency when they married. She had never looked before. Tonight, she looked. Deleted messages began loading. Hundreds of them. All from one contact, Vivian Sterling. Harper's hands shook as she read. Missing you tonight. Can't stop thinking about what you said. She doesn't understand you like I do. When are you telling her? Harper felt her chest tighten. The baby kicked hard, sensing her distress. She placed both hands on her belly and forced herself to breathe. She typed a message to Ethan. Who is Vivian Sterling? The response came within seconds. Just my COO. You're being paranoid. Pregnancy hormones. Harper's vision blurred with tears. She wanted to call someone, anyone, but her circle had shrunk since marrying Ethan. Was justice ever enough? Could any punishment equal what they had stolen from her son? Could any consequence repair the damage? No, she said honestly. But it's something. The trial became a media sensation. Every detail exposed. Vivian's confession at her own book launch party where she had admitted to planning the attack. Ethan's financial crimes. The web of lies they had built. Public opinion turned completely. The woman who had been painted as a victim was revealed as a calculating predator. The man who had claimed to be trapped was shown to be complicit in everything. The jury took less than a day to convict on all charges. Vivian received 7 years in federal prison. Ethan received 5 years. Both were ordered to pay restitution to Harper in the amount of $4.2 million. Harper used the money to establish the Cole Brennan Foundation. Its mission supporting families with premature babies and children with respiratory conditions. Every dollar went to help families who could not afford the care that Cole needed. She testified before Congress about maternal safety, about how the system failed victims of violence, about how wealth should not determine whether justice was possible. She became a symbol, not of revenge, but of survival, of fighting back, of refusing to let cruelty win. But privately, in the quiet moments, Harper struggled. She had won. Justice had been served. Her attackers were in prison. Her son was alive. So why did she still feel empty? Harper stood in her apartment and packed boxes. 2 years had passed since the trial. Cole was 3 years old now. He played on the floor with blocks. His oxygen tank a familiar companion. He had learned to move with it, to work around it. It was simply part of his life. She was moving, leaving New York, going to a small coastal town in Oregon where she had bought a house with a view of the ocean, far from the memories, far from the pain. Beth Montgomery visited to help pack. She had been Harper's friend in college. They had drifted apart when Harper married Ethan, but Beth had reached out after the trial, apologized for believing the media narrative, asked for another chance. You don't have to leave, Beth said. You won here. Did I? Harper asked. Look at Cole. Look what winning. Cole laughed as he stacked blocks. He did not know he was different. He did not understand that his oxygen tank made him unusual. To him, this was just normal. He's alive, Beth said. That's not nothing. I know, but sometimes I wonder what his life would have been like if I had just walked away that night. If I had left Ethan the moment I found the messages. If I had never confronted anyone. You can't think like that. Can I? Every decision I made led to this. I went to his office. I went to the hospital. I engaged with Vivian. I let my father wage war, and my son pays the price every day. Beth knelt beside Harper. You were betrayed. You were attacked. You fought back. None of this is your fault, but it's his reality, and he'll grow up knowing his mother's choices shaped that reality. Jack arrived with moving trucks. He had aged more in the last 2 years than the previous 10. The fight had taken something from him too. Second thoughts, he asked Harper. No, I need to leave. For Cole, for me. This city has too many ghosts. I understand. I'll visit. Often. I know you will. They loaded boxes in silence. Furniture, toys, medical equipment, the physical pieces of a life rebuilt from ruins. That evening, Harper took Cole to Central Park one last time. They sat by the pond and watched ducks swim. Cole pointed and laughed, his oxygen tube catching the fading sunlight. Bird, he said, one of his first clear words. Yes, baby, birds. Fly. They fly because they're free, Harper said softly. Someday you'll understand what that means. A woman approached hesitantly. She was young, pregnant, and her eyes were red from crying. Excuse me, which the woman said. Are you Harper Brennan? Harper's first instinct was to say no, to protect her privacy. But something in the woman's face stopped her. Yes, I saw you testify about what happened to you, about how you fought back. The woman's voice cracked. My boyfriends have been hitting me. I'm 6 months pregnant. I'm afraid to leave. I'm afraid to stay. I don't know what to do. Harper looked at this stranger, at her swollen belly, at her fearful eyes. She saw herself 3 years ago, before the attack, before the trial, before everything changed. What would you do if someone asked you how to survive the thing that nearly destroyed you? How do you share wisdom that came at such a terrible price? Harper had spent 2 years learning the answer to that question. Sit down, Harper said. Let's talk. But know this survival isn't pretty. It's not inspirational. It's messy and hard, and some days you won't want to keep going, but you do it anyway. For them, she gestured to her belly, then to Cole, because they deserve a mother who fights. They talked for 2 hours. Harper gave the woman phone numbers, resources, legal contacts. She made sure the woman had a safe place to stay that night. She promised to check in regularly. When the woman left, she hugged Harper. Thank you, you saved my life. After she was gone, Beth said, You're good at this, helping people. I'm good at surviving. Helping is what I do with it. They walked back to the apartment. Cole fell asleep in his stroller, the oxygen machine humming its familiar rhythm. Harper looked at the New York skyline one last time, the city that had broken her, the city where she had found her strength, the city she was leaving behind. Goodbye, she whispered. The next morning, they drove west, 12 hours in a car with a 3-year-old and his medical equipment. Was it worth it? She looked at Cole sleeping peacefully, his chest rising and falling with the help of his machine. Yes, it was worth it. They arrived in Oregon the next afternoon. The house sat on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Small but beautiful. Private, peaceful. Cole woke up as they pulled into the driveway. He looked out at the vast blue water and said, Big. Very big. Harper agreed. This is our new home. They spent the week unpacking, creating spaces, making the house a home. Jack stayed to help. Marcus installed a security system, then quietly left. On their last night before Jack returned to New York, they sat on the back deck. The sun set over the Pacific in colors Harper had forgotten existed. Do you regret it? Jack asked. Everything we did. Harper considered the question carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I don't regret doing it. I'm sorry I made you like me. You didn't make me anything. I chose to fight. You just showed me how. Your mother would have been proud of you. You never talk about her. Talking hurts. Tell me anyway. Jack was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, She died bringing you into this world. Complications during delivery. The doctor said they could save her or save you. She told them to save you without hesitation. Her last words were, Take care of our girl. Tears streamed down Harper's face. I never knew. I didn't want you to carry that burden. But you should know. You should know that your mother's last act was fighting for you, just like you've been fighting for Cole. Strength runs in our blood. Did you love her more than I thought possible? When she died, I became the man you grew up with. Hard, cold, ruthless. Because love had betrayed me. But you loved Ethan, got betrayed, and you're still capable of kindness. Still capable of helping that woman in the park. That's not me. That's all you. Harper leaned her head on her father's shoulder. I'm glad you came back into my life. I never left. You just couldn't see me through your anger. The next morning, Jack drove away. Harper stood on the porch with Cole in her arms and watched until the car disappeared. Then she turned toward the ocean, toward the future, toward whatever came next. Just us now, she told Cole. Us, he repeated. Then pointing at the water, Harper smiled. Yeah, baby, let's learn to fly. 2 years later, the Cole Brennan Foundation operated from a small office in downtown Portland. Harper went twice a week, spending the rest of her time working from home. She had learned to balance advocacy with motherhood, justice with peace. Cole was 5 now, starting kindergarten in a school that accommodated his medical needs. He had made friends. Other kids accepted his oxygen tank as just another thing about Cole, like his brown hair or his love of dinosaurs. Harper attended a support group meeting every Thursday evening. He had encouraged her to focus on preparing for motherhood, to step back from her marketing career, to make their home her priority. She looked at her phone contacts. Her thumb hovered over one named Dad. They had not spoken in 2 years. Not since the wedding when Jack had pulled her aside and said, That man is using you. I can see it. You're making a mistake. Harper had accused him of being controlling, of never approving of anyone she loved, of projecting his own failed marriage onto her life. Now, alone in her brownstone at midnight, she wondered if he had been right. She deleted the unsent message to her father. She would handle this herself. She had to. Harper grabbed her keys and headed for the door. She would go to Ethan's office. She would confront him. She would demand the truth. The drive into Manhattan took 40 minutes. Traffic was light this late. Harper's mind raced faster than the car. She rehearsed what she would say, how she would stay calm. Survivors of domestic violence. Women who had fought their way back from the edge. She shared her story. Listened to theirs. Reminded them that survival was possible. One evening, a new woman attended. She was quiet, nervous. When it was her turn to speak, she said, "I don't know if I belong here. My situation isn't violent, it's just complicated." "Tell us," Harper said gently. The woman described an emotionally abusive relationship, gaslighting, control, the slow erosion of her sense of self. She had left 3 times and gone back twice. Harper listened without judgment. When the woman finished, Harper said, "Abuse doesn't have to be physical to be real. You belong here. Your pain is valid. Your fight matters." After the meeting, the woman approached Harper. "I know who you are. I followed your case. You're the reason I left the last time. If you could stand up to people that powerful, I could stand up to my boyfriend." Harper hugged her. "You saved yourself. I was just a reminder that it's possible." The woman left. Harper cleaned up the meeting space, stacked chairs, threw away coffee cups, the simple, mundane tasks of helping others heal. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Vivian Sterling granted early release for good behavior. Harper stared at the notification. Vivian had served 4 years of her 7-year sentence. She was getting out. Harper waited for the fear, for the anger, for the desire for revenge to reignite. Instead, she felt nothing. Vivian Sterling had no power over her anymore. The woman who had pushed her, who had almost killed her son, who had tried to destroy her life, was just another person now. Not a villain, not a threat, just someone who made terrible choices and paid for them. Harper deleted the notification and drove home. Cole was playing in the backyard when she arrived. His oxygen tank sat beside him, the cannula in his nose so familiar he did not even notice it anymore. He was building a fort from sticks and imagination. "Mom," he called. "Come see." Harper joined him. They played until sunset, building impossible structures and making up stories about the creatures who lived in them. Later, after Cole was asleep, Harper stood on her deck and looked at the ocean. The moon reflected off the waves, creating a path of light that stretched to the horizon. Her phone rang. Jack's name appeared. "Did you see the news?" he asked. "About Vivian, yes." "Should I be worried?" "No, she's not my problem anymore." "You're sure I can have Marcus keep tabs on her?" "Dad, I'm sure, let her rebuild her life. I'm focused on building mine." "You've become wiser than me. I learned from the best, both what to do and what not to do." Jack laughed. "Fair enough. How's my grandson?" "Perfect. Thriving. Happy." "Good. That's all that matters." They talked for another hour. About nothing important. About everything important. About life after the fight. When Harper finally hung up, she felt something she had not felt in years. Peace. Real, genuine peace. She had been broken. She had been rebuilt. She had fought and survived and learned that justice was not always courtrooms and convictions. Sometimes justice was simply refusing to let cruelty define you. Harper went inside, checked on Cole one more time, watched his chest rise and fall, the machine doing its quiet work keeping him alive. "We made it," she whispered. "Not the way we planned, but we made it." She climbed into bed and fell asleep within minutes. No nightmares, no anxiety, just rest. The next morning, Harper woke to sunlight streaming through her windows. She made breakfast, helped Cole get ready for school, drove him to kindergarten and watched him walk through the doors with his small backpack and his oxygen tank and his huge smile. On the drive back home, she passed a billboard. It advertised the Cole Brennan Foundation. The tagline read, "Survival is just the beginning." Harper had written those words herself. They were true. Survival was just the start. What you did after surviving, how you transformed pain into purpose, that was what mattered. She spent the morning working on a grant proposal for a new program, funding for trauma therapy for mothers of NICU babies. She had learned that the mothers needed support as much as the babies needed medical care. Around noon, Beth called. "Lunch next week." "Absolutely. Same place, same place. They had lunch every other week, talked about life, children, healing. Beth had become more than a friend. She had become family. That afternoon, Harper took Cole to the beach. They built sandcastles and collected shells. His oxygen tank left tracks in the sand behind him, a reminder of his journey, but not a limitation of his future. Mom, what's that? When I grow up, will I still need this? Cole asked, pointing to his oxygen. Harper knelt beside him. Maybe. Maybe not. Doctors are always learning new things. But even if you do, it doesn't change who you are. You're brave and strong and kind. The oxygen just helps you breathe. It doesn't define you. Okay, Cole said simply. He went back to playing. Children accepted reality so much easier than adults. They adapted. They moved forward. They did not waste time mourning what could have been. Harper could learn from that. As the sun began to set, they walked back to the car. Cole chattered about his day, his friends, his plans for tomorrow. Normal, beautiful, ordinary life. That evening, Harper wrote in her journal. She had started the practice as therapy after leaving New York, a way to process everything that had happened, a way to remember and to release. She wrote, "Today I realized something. I spent 2 years fighting for justice. I thought justice would heal me. It didn't. What healed me was deciding to stop letting anger drive my choices. What healed me was learning that being a victim and being a survivor are two different things. What healed me was understanding that I could not control what was done to me, but I could control who I became because of it. I chose to become someone who helps others, someone who turns pain into purpose, someone who survives and then teaches survival. That choice healed me more than any courtroom ever could." She closed the journal and looked at the photo on her nightstand. It showed Cole on his first day of kindergarten, smiling, confident, alive. Harper had fought for that moment, had sacrificed for it, had clawed her way through darkness to reach it, and it was worth every single painful step. She turned off her light and whispered into the darkness, "Thank you." Not to anyone in particular, not to ghost or fate or justice, just gratitude for making it through, for surviving, for finding peace on the other side of war. Outside, the ocean waves continued their eternal rhythm, crashing and receding, destroying and rebuilding, the constant cycle of breakdown and renewal. Harper understood that rhythm now. She had been broken like the shore under the waves, but like the shore, she had reformed herself, stronger, different, but still standing. And that, she finally understood, was the only victory that truly mattered. Justice had been served. Revenge had been taken. Consequences had been delivered. But peace had come from within, from choosing survival over bitterness, from choosing purpose over pain, from choosing to be more than what had been done to her. Harper Brennan had been attacked, betrayed, and nearly destroyed. But Harper Brennan had survived, and in surviving, she had become something her attackers could never be free. That's Harper's story. But the conversation doesn't end here. What would you have done in her position? The comments are open. And if you found value in this story, the algorithm needs to know so others can find it too. That like button. It actually matters. New stories drop every week. Subscribe so you don't miss them. Thanks for listening. Now go check on someone you love. How she would protect her baby from the stress. When have you ever had to protect your own child from the truth about their father? That moment when you realize the life you built might be constructed on lies. Harper was about to learn that some truths destroy everything. She parked in the visitor lot of Ethan's building. The lobby lights were on. Security waved her through. They knew her face. The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt endless. Each floor number that lit up brought her closer to a confrontation she both needed and feared. The doors opened. Harper stepped into the quiet hallway. Light spilled from under Ethan's office door. She heard voices, laughter, a woman's voice, musical and confident. Harper pushed open the door. Ethan sat at his desk. A woman perched on the edge, facing him. Expensive wine bottle open between them. The woman's shoes sat discarded on the floor. Both turned to look at Harper. Vivian Sterling was beautiful in the way that powerful women often are. Sharp features, designer everything, the kind of confidence that came from never hearing the word no. She slid off the desk gracefully, not bothering to reach for her shoes. "Harper," Ethan said, standing quickly. What are you doing here? Harper's eyes moved between them. I could ask you the same thing. It's 2 in the morning. Vivian extended her hand with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Vivian Sterling, I don't think we formally met. I'm Ethan's chief operating officer. Harper did not take the offered hand. I know who you are. I found the messages. Ethan's face paled. Harper, let's talk about this at home. No? Harper's voice surprised herself with its steadiness. We talk about it now, in front of her. Since apparently she's part of this conversation, Vivian's smile widened. Actually, I'm part of more than just conversations. I own 40% equity in this company. Ethan and I built this together. You came after. The words hit Harper like physical blows. What? Ethan moved toward her. Harper, it's as complicated. Viv invested her family money when we were just an idea. We've been business partners for 5 years. Business partners? Harper's laugh sounded hollow. Is that what we're calling it? Vivian sat back on the desk, completely at ease. We were engaged, actually, before you. He left me when you got pregnant, said he had to do the right thing. Trapped him quite nicely. Didn't you? Harper's world tilted. She grabbed the doorframe for support. Ethan shot Vivian a warning look. That's enough. Is it true? Harper whispered. Were you engaged to her? The silence stretched too long. Oh my God. Harper's hand went to her belly. This whole time, our entire relationship. Harper, I love you, Ethan said. What Viv and I had was different. It was business that became personal. With you, it's real. Vivian laughed. That's insane. That's expensive lawyers. Dr. Hoffman cleared her throat. I was here that night. I saw Ms. Sterling walk in. I saw the confrontation. I would be willing to testify about what I witnessed. Hope flickered in Harper's chest. You would do that. I took an oath to do no harm. Watching someone lie about causing harm to a pregnant woman violates everything I believe in. Jack and Dr. Hoffman exchanged phone numbers. Plans were made for her to give a formal statement to the police. After the doctor left, Harper looked at her father. What do we do now? Now, Jack's expression hardened. Now we fight back. But I need you to understand something. This won't be clean. Vivian Sterling comes from money. Not as much as us, but enough to wage war. And Ethan, he's already choosing sides. What do you mean? He gave a statement to the police too, supporting Vivian's version. Said you've been emotionally unstable throughout the pregnancy. Jack insisted on driving. Marcus rode in a follow car with more belongings. They stopped halfway at a hotel. Cole was fussy from the travel. His oxygen levels fluctuated. Harper stayed up most of the night monitoring him, adjusting his flow, keeping him comfortable. In the quiet darkness, she thought about Vivian and Ethan. They were in federal prison, their lives destroyed, their reputations ruined. Everything they had built together was gone. Did she feel satisfaction? Vindication, justice. She felt tired. Revenge had consumed 2 years of her life. The fight had taken everything she had. And in the end, what had it accomplished? Her son was still medically fragile. Her marriage was still destroyed. Her trust in people was still shattered. The only difference was that the people who hurt her were punished. And that punishment had cost her father millions of dollars, countless favors called in, and relationships damaged beyond repair.